Thank you so much for joining us today. So I'm going to be presenting the cloud computing. Okay, let me start. So first I'm going to just discuss what are the drivers, what pushes the company to move towards cloud computing, obviously, other than the obvious one that happened right now, the epidemic that has forced most of the companies to accelerate. So what is why companies would want to move to the cloud? So the first one would be mostly in terms of regulatory compliance. They just want to make sure that in terms of data security and regulation, they are compliant, because when you are in the cloud, the majority of the standards are there, and then it's a matter of just enabling them, and they can actually even let you know how are you doing in terms of those compliance, and then they'll give you in terms of advice. How can you improve your score? So the other one is in terms of business growth. As you're aware that we, as companies, are running out of money, so they don't have money to buy more data centers, and data centers are expensive to maintain. So people, they just find it easy to move to the cloud in terms of capacity and demand, to grow as much as required, to scale, as much as it's required by the business. So the other one is legacy systems. In the data centers, there's a lot of legacy systems, proprietary software. So people want to modernize those legacy systems for easier integration. And if you can remember, on-prem, there's a lot of integration. It's very much complex, and some were done a long time ago. So this allows them to modernize and actually even to streamline the integration. In terms of big data, as we also know that our data lake, and our analytics require a lot of space on-prem, and people are running out of space within the data centers. While if you move to the cloud environment, the space is unlimited. The amount of data that you can put there is unlimited. It just depends on your pocket. It depends how big is your pocket. And then that's why majority of the people, they normally move to the cloud to accommodate their big data, and also for business continuity. Like I mentioned previously, it's not everyone that can afford a data center. So some you'll find that they do have their applications on-prem, but then they want to put their DR and backups in the cloud, which make it easier for them because they're just paying for what they are using, not paying for the data center space. And also it's just agility, faster to market. It's easier to develop stuff within the cloud environment rather than on-prem, because the tools are at the tips of your fingers, and then the developers, they just enjoy deploying on the DevOps platform or be the platform as a service environment. And then the other one is service levels. IT always causes headache in terms of SLA. The systems are failing, the system are running out of capacity, and then you find that then the application is no longer available. So you're never gonna find that within the cloud. You never find a system that is not available. You might find that it's got degraded capacity in terms of performance, but it will never be not available because it's mirrored or it's replicated across multiple data centers. And the other one is the cost. But the cost is arguable, because when you're on-prem, you've got CapEx where you have to buy the infrastructure, it depreciates after a certain time, you have to replace it. And then in the cloud, you don't really have to buy any infrastructure. That is no longer your responsibility, somebody else's responsibility. However, you pay for the resources that you are utilizing in the cloud. So it's more like moving away from the CapEx, which is more the capital, and moving towards the operational cost. But it depends how then you optimize your cost in the cloud. If you're not optimizing your cost in the cloud and not understanding your cost, it might end up being expensive. All right, so some of the approach people, they normally take, they standardize in terms of the blueprints, the processes, and the portfolio, and then they move to identifying and prioritizing the initiative that they can optimize, more like the quick wins, and then they move towards convergence, moving the workloads or increasing the utilization within those workloads. And then the other one is agility. So they start adopting cloud services and automating some of the applications, as well as provision infrastructure faster. So that's what the cloud gives us. It gives us the agility. So when you look at this, I think people have tried it in the past, where people have moved from physical servers to virtuals, moving towards private cloud, and then moving towards public cloud, but we'll discuss it later. Okay, so what is cloud? People are normally, they don't understand what is cloud. And for me, it's like, it's not something that is new. You know, before we had stuff like Yahoo was in the cloud. Your email, your Gmail, that's in the cloud. If you're using your Apple cell phone, right? Your iOS, that's in the cloud. So it's more like how you do things, how you deploy things, rather than actually a place, right? It's the same thing, because the data center is still there. It's just shifting the responsibility in terms of the infrastructure. That is no longer your problem. It's somebody else's problem. You don't have to worry about buying new servers, buying new storage, and rack and stacking, the power, the cooling of the data center and stuff like that. You don't have to, if you already have, you've invested, you don't have to extend. You're just shifting your workload to somebody else's data center, but it's how they do things. It doesn't mean that you cannot achieve that when you are on-prem. It just means that some of the people have what the word for it, they are more ahead than you in terms of the software, in terms of deployment, that they fine-tune how they deploy the environment. And while for you it's still an infant, is in the infantry phase, as well as it's in terms of the skills. They've got the skills to do that, while the guys on-prem, they don't. But it's all about doing things faster. It's all about agility. It's all about capacity. But there are some guys within that environment, like take Microsoft, you find that they're still an operating system guy. They're still an infrastructure guy that is running around and buying more servers. They're still a storage guy that is managing it. From our side, we don't have to do that, because someone is doing that for us. We just need to worry from operating system and up, depending on the cloud deployment that you're choosing. Apologies. Let me move. My dog is acting up. All right. All right. So then, why cloud? Why would somebody even, consider cloud? I think I've mentioned some of the benefits of the cloud is scalability. You can dynamic scale your environment in real time. If you need more RAM, you just scale it as much as it's required by your application. If you need more storage, is that case. Unlike on-prem, where you have to go through hoops and hoops to get someone to increase the storage for you, and while you're losing money, it's also the flexibility that you get with the cloud in terms of expanding. If you have an application that that require more resources at the end of the month, like your billing software, it's easier for you to scale it then. And when you don't require it, you can actually bring down your resources, which means you pay less. It's also mobility. When you're in the cloud, you don't need all these VPNs to connect to your environment. The only thing that you need is internet. If you've got internet, you can connect to your applications. Majority of the application that we have are sitting on our mobiles, be Teams, be some of the Azure applications, as well as just accessing your Office 365 resources, which is your email, which is your OneDrive. You can access it through your mobile. Do you have a question? I don't see. So I wouldn't, please just let me know if someone has a question, because I wouldn't see the hand.
Yeah, I'll do things.
Okay, so it's also faster to market. Unlike on-prem, where you have to go and buy the service, rack and stack, and then get someone to provision the operating system application over and above that, it's just taking longer. In the cloud, if you've got a developers, they can start developing immediately. So you eliminate some of the tasks, which means you're fastening the process. So it's all about the agility that the business gets when they need to take something to the market. It doesn't take longer anymore. And the other one is just the reliability. And I did mention that the cloud is so reliable that you wouldn't find an application that will go down completely. You know, everything fails. But because they've got multiple data centers and the data is redundant in all these data centers, it makes it easier. You might have degraded performance at the time. Sometimes you won't even realize that you've had a degraded performance. You just only see the alert that, oh yeah, you're one of the affected people, but you wouldn't experience it. So it gives you that like assurity in terms of business continuity. So it's actually the fundamental shift in IT. If you don't move towards the cloud, you'll always be left behind. It means that you're not agile. You'll become like the Nokias of this world, where when everybody else was moving forward, Nokia was comfortable with what they have, as much as they were leading at some stage. Now look at them; they are way behind. So some of the things you can get cost savings, because like I said, you only pay for what you're using, and then you're also aware in terms of how much cost you're spending within the cloud environment. So there's that transparency, and then you can move your resources, like move your people to do more stuff rather than doing the tedious task. So you move your infrastructure resources, they can scale up and do something different. They can even scale up and be the people that be looking after your cloud environment. So there are different cloud models. So I'm going to only discuss 4 today. So the first one is the private cloud that allow you to deploy stuff within your own data centers, your own premises, but it gives you that cloud ability. And then the second one is public cloud, where you totally move your stuff into Azure or be your AWS or be your Google or be your Oracle, and there's IBM now, there's Huawei. So those are your public cloud. And if you decide to move to use both, hybrid, it's when you have a combination of private and public cloud, which means some of your applications are still on-prem and some of the applications are in the cloud, which is majority of the companies, they take that route. So that's what we call hybrid. And then the community, it's when a group of companies, they sit together to form this part of the multi-tenant platform for a specific thing. Let's take the banks. They say the banks suddenly they get hackers hacking and stealing the money within the banks or taking credit card information. So Standard Bank, ABSA, be your Old Mutual, be some of the financial industry like your Liberty, they can come together and have this cloud platform, which they call community cloud, and have their developers trying and coming up with some sort of security features to secure the financial industry. So that's what we call the community cloud. But it's actually up to you as a company in terms of which cloud deployment or cloud model will you prefer, depending on the strategy that the company is taking. So the journey to cloud. So a long time ago, like donkey years ago, there was an application-based silo approach where it was mostly physical servers where each application is running on its dedicated servers that are not shared. And if it requires high availability, that means it's 2 servers for that application. If there's a DR, there's a third one. And then if you also require dev, you have a dedicated server. If you require your pre-prod, be your QA, which is quality assurance, is gonna be several servers. So, and it doesn't matter if you are utilizing the server, because they didn't have a mechanism of sharing that particular server. It means that you've got idling resources. So that's where it comes from. And then there was an introduction of virtualization zones. With the introduction of VMware, introduction of Hyper-V, and then there was also Citrix Zen, and then also Oracle Virtual Machine, and then there's also Red Hat. So that actually virtualized the servers and created some zones or more like pools where you can take one server and actually can be shared by different application running different operating system. So the server is no longer dedicated to Windows. So the server, you can have an application like Linux running there, you can have Windows running there, and you can have Oracle for Oracle for x86 running on the same server. So that those things, or that mechanic was called virtualization. And then people, then they move and take it a step further into private cloud, where they introduce the hyper-converged service. And that allow now, that comes with virtualization, that comes with the automation, that comes with the storage and everything done for you. Unlike on the virtualization zone, it was still like a physical server that you have to sit down and load the operating system, then the virtualization software. So this one came with it, kind of like give you that kind of a private cloud, and you can put it up quickly. And then the next thing is then the public cloud, which is your Azure, your Google. And if you're using both, then let's give you the hybrid. But majority of the companies, they go with the hybrid approach, but then they go with the multi-cloud vendor, cloud providers, to make sure that they are not locked in. It also means that if there is a product that is cheaper at AWS, and then they can just move their workload to AWS, and then if there's something cheaper at Azure or Google, they can move it there. So it gives them that flexibility to move between the cloud providers, either be because of the cost, or it's because of the products that they've developed. Maybe that particular product is better, or maybe AWS have better security, or maybe Google is better in API development than Azure. So they move according to their requirements and also to the business demands. So it allows you, this whole thing allows you to centralize. You can centralize your application, and you can consolidate as well, because before there was no consolidation. Yes, can standardize on policies and stuff. It allows you to automate your workloads, be deploying stuff with templates and stuff, or using runbooks. And also it gives you that kind of self-service. I mean, you don't have to run to the easy one. You don't have to run to your IT guys every time you need to reset your password. You can actually reset it yourself. You just go to, I think the Azure, they've got self-service password reset. You go to the portal, and then you can reset your password. So it gives you that, it gives you some sort of the control, not to depend on the IT stuff all the time. So any questions so far? Or we still good?
Yeah, I think we're still good. It's just that I think obviously we have a different audiences. So the on-prems will be maybe, you know, I think I'm just saying some of the terms we can try to simplify them so that all of us can follow.
Okay, so while you're talking about the on-prem, so the on-prem is like having your own data centers on premises. We just shorten it and call it on-prem. So if you have any other word that you want me to simplify, I can simplify it for you. But so far, I'm going to move forward.
Yeah.
All right. So, and if I become too technical, please tell me so that I can take a step back. I didn't go through the list of our attendees to see the level of technicality that they've got. Okay, so we've got infrastructure as a service. So I mentioned that there was something called virtualization when we were deploying stuff on the on-premises, either using VMware. It's actually give you a logical VM, or it's give you a logical server, so you don't have to have dedicated servers. So the infrastructure as a service is exactly the same concept. You go to the cloud, you get your virtualization there, and then you load your operating system on top. I'm going to discuss that one after this slide. But what application can you move to the infrastructure as a service environment? So that's your legacy system, the system that cannot be modernized, but you need them. They are part of the company, they are important in the company. And it's also a proprietary software. You know, some of the softwares that you can't move, they don't have a software as a service. Example, when you look at your SAP, right? SAP has SAP HANA, so there's a SAP cloud. So when you look at your Oracle application has, there's an Oracle cloud, which means that application can be modernized depending on your pocket. But the application, like they are developing how some of them, like your Q masters, they were developed long time ago. So those kind of application, then you find that you can't really modernize the application, then you have to put it on the infrastructure as a service, which doesn't really differ much from on-prem. The only thing that differs is that you don't have to worry about the underlying infrastructure or replacing of the infrastructure that is done by the vendor, the cloud provider. And then there's a platform as a service. Some of the things you can move to the platform as a service environment is stuff like I'm gonna explain these things on the next slides. So it's stuff like if you have developers in-house and they develop the application for you, so you need to move those applications to platform as a service. If you've got your data analytics, your insights, so those things like your data lake, your BI, they used to have a BI, your business intelligence team. So the stuff that they're doing can move to platform as a service. And anything else that is new, like your logical apps, your functional apps, and your web application, can you move to platform as a service. And common software, like commodity, like your Office 365, you can move the stuff to software as a service, be your workforce. It can move also to software as a service. And also where you don't have the application support skills in-house, just move it. If the vendor has the software as a service environment, move it there. So stuff like your ServiceNow, there is no point of having ServiceNow in-house. ServiceNow is a software as a service application, which means the application is provided by the vendor and managed by the vendor. So when you look here, I'm going to move from software as a service down. So when you look at your software as a service, the infrastructure and the application, everything that has to do with the application is actually managed by your vendor, your service provider. So this is your Office 365, your OneDrive. All you do is just use it. The only thing that you are responsible for is the data. When you take your OneDrive, you move all your data inside seamlessly. You don't care what infrastructure is running underneath. You don't care about the application as long as you can use it. Your emails, as long as you can use your emails, you don't care actually about the infrastructure and the application that comes with it. Because you are able to receive your emails, you can send your emails, you can do whatever that you need to do. So that is an application that falls under software as a service. So in terms of your platform as a service, so you'll see that your hardware, your servers, and everything, your runtime and your backups are done by the application vendor, or more like the service provider, your cloud service provider. The only thing that you are responsible for are the application that you're deploying or configuring over and above, and also your data. So normally these applications, it's either applications you will utilize the application that are provided by the cloud service provider. So developers will be using some of the tools that are there. So your BI team or your data analytics team, they'll go there, they'll deploy some application like BI. There's BI in the cloud, which means you don't have to deploy it on-prem, you're just using it. And also they are responsible for the data that is within that environment. So when you look at your infrastructure as a service, this doesn't differ much from what you have on premises mostly. So, but then the only thing that changes is that the physical infrastructure and the virtualization layer, which is your hypervisor. These are mentioned the likes of VMware. I'm sure you've heard of VMware, Hyper-V for the Microsoft. There's Red Hat one, and then there's also the one for Oracle, and there's also Citrix. So the hypervisor will be done by, and the networking, some sort of networking, but not everything. Physical networking and storage, and physical storage will be done by the cloud service provider. And from your operating system, you'll choose the operating system that you want to run there, and then also you'll deploy the application. This is where you can actually, your legacy application can reside, or your proprietary application that can never be modernized. So this is the lowest level of cloud deployment, and it doesn't really give you much in terms of costing, because you're still paying from the operating system and up. So you don't really save much of the cost. So if you decide to go to cloud and you're saying, I'm moving all my application to infrastructure as a service, you'll be complaining and be crying and saying it's too costly, because you won't really see. The only time then you can start seeing the cost, it's when maybe you shut your servers down at night when they're not used, and then you only pay during the day, or some of the applications that are not used over the weekend, you shut them down, and then that means you're saving the cost. And then the on-premises, you are responsible for everything. What they don't show here, underneath the networking, it's a data center, the physical building. You are responsible of the building. You are responsible of the power within the building. You are responsible of cooling. You are responsible of, then you move to the racks, the ones that slaughter the servers or that host the servers, then the servers within those racks, your storage, your cabling, and then your networking, your switches, your firewalls. You are responsible for everything, and configuration of those things, making sure that they work, loading of the operating system, be Windows, be Linux, be Oracle, be IBM or HP, loading of the backups in your environment, application residing within your data center, then your data. You are responsible for everything. So that's the difference between these ones. Okay, I see there's a question. Oh, it's a chat. Oh, all right. Let me proceed.
Yes, it's not a question. I think it was just the feedback for the session.
Yes. All right. So I normally say before people they actually move to the cloud, you need to do application assessment. If you can, if you don't have the skill in house to do it yourself, bring someone from outside, the likes of Deloitte, the likes of Accenture, the likes of any other company that can actually do this for you. But always try, have some idea before. You shouldn't rely to someone to tell you everything. So this is kind of like the guideline in terms of how can you actually access and assess your applications. So here on this side, on the left hand side, we've got different definition in terms of what does retire mean, what does replace mean, and re-architect, rehost, platform, and then consolidate. Okay, so I'm going to start on the right hand side and you can move to the left hand side. So for each application that you've got, and we know the history of on the on-premises, there is a duplicate in terms of application. You've got application that does exactly the same functionality. There might be different applications. Sometimes they even go for the same application because each BU or department, they want their own, with that entitlement, that ownership, that is ours, even though they won't go and actually touch it. So it's important to make sure that you eliminate the ones that you don't need anymore. You also, in terms of duplications, you need to identify the duplications to save on cost. All right, so the first question is like, is this application needed? If it's not needed, then you eliminate. It means that you retire, you decommission, it's end of life, it's gone. It's not required, you take a stand, then you move. Is it commoditized? If it's yes, then it's software as a service. So those are your Office 365. There is no point of having it your own dedicated and on-prem. ServiceNow, everybody knows with ServiceNow, they go through an environment, right? So there is no point to have those kind of applications on premises. And then the other one is strategic. If it's strategic, and then you need to invest. That means you need to re-architect. It means you need to bring your developers to redevelop this code. You can find it was developing a very, very old code. Now you want to make it new. So that's what modernization means. It means that you must make it current so that it's going to be easier for you to move to the cloud. Then you bring your developers, you re-architect it, you move it to platform as a service. I mentioned like your BI, or you've got developers in-house, you can move those kind of things to the cloud. All right, so if it doesn't really give you return on investments, if it's constrained, but it's still one of the applications that is key for the company, or the company cannot, operate without it, or you haven't really found the replacement for the application, because there's applications that are heavily coded and customized. Some is not even, it's a matter of code, it's a matter of you bought a proprietary software and then you make sure that you customize it in such a way that it's even difficult to migrate it. to modernize it. You won't even know where to start if you were modernizing it, because you're afraid that something is going to break. So you really need to tolerate that until you can actually break down that complexity within that application. You need to tolerate it. So it's more like you're rehosting. You're moving it from one place to the next. That's what infrastructure as a service is. I'm moving it from my premises. I'm moving it to someone else's environment, be your Azure or be your AWS. And then the other one is there are those applications that are not cloud compatible. So these kind of applications are the stuff that is running on appliances. So if something is running on the appliance, and the stuff in appliances, they come with its own dedicated operating system that is there. You can't really put any operating system that you want. So then you don't have a choice. That is a kind of application that has to stay within on premises until such time that you find its replacement. So we call those application non-cloud because they are really not cloud compatible. So some of the things here, so like I said, if you retire, so you're more like you decommissioning the stuff, but you need to preserve the data. And depending on the type of data that is inside, if it's a financial data, you know, there's a compliance, you must keep it, you know, for 12 years. I think it's 12 years. If it's medical data, you must keep it for 24 years. That's regulator. So, but you must keep it according to the regulatory requirements, and make sure that the data is put in the right place where you can recover it when it's required. So replace or replace means that you assessing your current environment, you checking also their business requirements and see which stuff needs to be migrated, or if stuff needs to be upgraded or be configured so that you can move it to the cloud. A re-platform of the application, like I said, is make sure that it's in such a way that it's structured in such a way that it improves your integration and your flexibility. And okay, I think let me see if there's a question.
Yeah.
Okay, so Oracle doesn't have VMware. It's called the Oracle VM. So it's supposed to run. It depends on which one you deploy, but the Oracle VM is like Hyper-V or your VMware. It allows you to deploy any type of operating system over and above, be Linux or Ubuntu Force under Linux, be Windows, or be Oracle for x86, because these things are normally put on the servers that you can actually virtualize. But I'll check for you. I'll check documentation for you. Can you take the email for this person so that I can check the documentation?
Yeah, all right. I'll do. Thanks.
All right. Okay, so this is my favorite wheel. And on the right-hand side, it's actually the risk guideline in terms of how critical your application is. So I'm going to start with the wheel. So the easiest stuff that you can actually move to the cloud is stuff that I said low complexity or public cloud. So it's stuff like email, I mean, your back office services, your dev and test environment, they can move. I mean, there's nothing that is bounding your dev and test environment into your own premises. Your collaborative or messaging, that is your Skype for Business, that's your Teams, it can move to the cloud. It's like your document management applications, and also the company websites. The company websites can actually move to the cloud, guys. There is nothing stopping the company website to stay on-prem. And that way it will always be available. I mean, imagine if you want to access this particular company and then it's saying, sorry, website not available. That is actually not professional. It's just better just to move it where it's always going to be available. So these are the environments that are not complex whatsoever. The quick wins, the easier ones to migrate. And then the following ones that I said they are more like medium complexity. It can be based on the integration. They might be integrated with a lot of stuff. take finance system. Everybody wants data from the finance system. Even data analytics require data from the finance system. And then it might be integrated with 10 other systems. So they are more complex in terms of understanding where your application are. And then imagine if you have something in the cloud and then you have something on-prem, and if something in the cloud has to come back and talk to something on-prem, it might cause slow performance. So you must be very clever in terms of moving it together, identify those applications that you can move together. So these ones are your second batch, but with a medium complexity. And then the ones that have more complexity are the ones downstairs. So these are still legacy applications, like we said, the integration, the way they are deployed, the way they communicate is just complicated. And then it's also data warehouses and also highly sensitive information sources. There you have to actually engage your legal system or your legal advisors within the company and actually find out if this kind of information can be moved to the cloud. And then also now we have all these standards. We've got POPI, we've got GDPR for Europe. So you actually need to check in terms of what information you can make it available within the cloud environment. There are also those applications that you cannot move to the cloud. For in our case, it's the stuff that talks to the direct production of core, because we work with core. So that is systems that actually makes everything to work, right? Not really dig hole, but I mean, there is a process in terms of the geologists to go there and check once the blasting is done, and also for the trucks to go and get the coal and put it in a certain place. And then once that place is full, it needs to be moved to the place to clean. And so it's a process. So there are application that does all of that, that monitors all of that, that actually also monitors the sensors to make sure that everything is working correctly. So we can never move those applications to the cloud, because it means that if the internet is not there, it means that we will not be able to produce core. And if we can't produce core, then we can't pay people. And then as a company, we can't get money. So it's important just to look at all your application and group them accordingly. So on the right-hand side is that, but we're not saying that you cannot move some of these applications to the cloud. I mean, our data warehouse is in the cloud, but it's more complex because it's integrated everything. You just need to understand how it's integrated and how you're going to move data to the data warehouse. And also in terms of the highly sensitive data, it's up to you. Ours is in the cloud as well. It's a matter of how are you securing this data in the cloud and who are you giving access to this kind of information. So we're kind of like limiting the access to the data. Nobody can, it's not everyone that can access the data, and it's kind of like the few people, and it's really, really secure. It has put down in such a way that it's locked. You know, if we have 10 locks, we'll have 10 locks in this kind of data, just to make sure that it's only few people that can access it, and they access it when it's required, because some of the data might be, you know, very much personal. And then on the right-hand side, it's in terms of confidentiality and integration and availability. So this, they call it CIA, right? So you put a score. You put a score there, and depending of the score on how each application you've scored it, if it's too risky, don't move to the cloud. If it's the risk is not that high, those are the applications that you can actually move to the cloud. Like example, the website. The website is not risky. There is no information really that is residing within the website itself, but the information might be on the databases. And the databases, you can decide whether you're hosting the databases within the cloud or you're keeping it on-prem. It's up to you. So, but I always say, if it doesn't feel right, if it's too risky and you need a second opinion, just wait and get that second opinion to say, can I move this application to the cloud? And you move it. And if the risk is too low, those are your quick wins. Those are the first things that you can actually move to the cloud environment. Okay, let me go to the next slide. All right, so there is governance. Moving to the cloud does not mean that you do as you please, you don't follow the IT processes. Unfortunately, your IT and everything else, they work. You know, everything needs to be governed, because if there's no governance, you end up be getting fines, or findings, and that's not good for the company, because the company is like your PwC. They'll be still be coming for you, and they want to audit your cloud environment. Is it secure? Is it following the process? Are the people just doing their own thing? Do they log changes when they want to do something? What is the incident process that is followed if something is down? So you still need to comply, and you still need to confirm, and also to adhere on the governance, on the IT governance. So it's always going to require the operational team. Any configuration change, sorry, we go back. So any configuration change, you still need to go to your CAB and make sure that they give you approval, then you move, then you make changes. And if there's an incident, and also you make sure that you have an incident manager that will be helping you. You also need your service delivery manager that will make sure that everything is delivered accordingly. And your service brokering will normally be done by your cloud team. And like your cloud center of excellence will be doing a service brokering that are related to the cloud environment. And then there are also SLA, either you're doing it yourself or you've got a service provider that is doing it for you. Then you have those SLA. Even with Microsoft, you're going to have an SLA. With AWS, you're going to have an SLA, because you want to ensure that your stuff is up and running. And what are the penalties if it's not? And then your identities, you still need to make sure that you secure everything. Identity and access management is your responsibility. You're the one who's going to be giving people access to this particular environment or taking it away. In terms of technology, you still need to integrate your data. You still may define your protocols. I think this can be this might be too technical, so I'm not going to focus on the protocols. But virtualization management, that's your technology team, your ops team. They still need, especially for infrastructure as a service, they need to make sure that it's done. Network interfacing, IP addresses and stuff, you still need your network team. And then also to ensure that your data is actually protected within the cloud environment. And in terms of risk and compliance, you still need to make sure that in terms of compliance and legal, you are adhering to the standards and everything else. And also, if there are any threats and vulnerabilities in the cloud, be because you migrated stuff that was on-prem and you move it to the cloud and it's got all these vulnerabilities, you also need to make sure that you close that. Otherwise, the hackers will have a field day. And then also in terms of just making sure that the environment is actually secure. And then in terms of monitoring, you need to monitor environment. You need to know when the environment is down. You need to know when your environment is running out of capacity so that you can scale up, or you can set up the auto scaling, or you don't. It's up to you. So you need to know when your services there's degraded performance so that you can actually inform your users. And in terms of finance, it's the biggest factor in the cloud. Like we talk about the transparency of finance, but people can go crazy, especially developers. They can go and develop a lot of stuff, which can cost company a lot of money. So there still needs to be some sort of a billing administrator, a cloud billing administrator, someone who will be responsible just for billing within the cloud on a month-to-month basis, and also keep track what changed this month, what was the cause. And then if you see that there's a business unit that is going crazy, you can just bring them and say, guys, your costs are too high. What are you doing? Are you cleaning up, or you just wasting company's money? So so there's still gonna be tax management, but that is done by the finance people and finance reporting on the cloud environment. There is not much procurement because you buy a fund. So it's either pay as you go or you commit. It depends on the company. But yeah. And then here is I mentioned the standards and compliances. We have a lot in the cloud environment. So actually they help you. They're better in the cloud because they're not on papers. When you're on-prem, you have your Excel spreadsheet, and then you're checking that, oh, am I compliant or not? You're checking the controls. In the cloud, you just go and enable them. And once they enable, they'll give you a score. They'll tell you, okay, your environment out of 24 points, you're probably sitting at 8, and the reason you're sitting on 8 is because you haven't done 1, 2, 3, 4. You do these things, it increases your score, and it also helps yourself to be on top of your things. When the auditors comes, you know exactly that your environment is secure. You know, you don't have to argue with them because you can just show them proof. It's available. And then also locations, like I said, if you decide to put your stuff in Europe, you must comply with GDPR. And if you put your stuff in US, there's not really a standard, but you know that US have a right to access your data anytime as long as it's residing in their environment. If they need it, they will go for it. And then in South Africa, we've got POPI, which is personal information data. And then one, you need to make sure that the people or the users are actually agreeing for you to move their data to the cloud. So you need to make sure that you POPI compliant. If you're putting personal or sensitive data in the cloud, you need to make sure that it's locked. It's not everyone that's got access. And for you to access that particular data, the user must give you approval to say, you can actually access my data. Especially anything that has to do with health, the user must give you permission to access that particular data. In terms of security in the cloud, people are always saying, is the cloud secure or not? The cloud is very much secure, guys. It's easy. It also helps in terms of making sure that you don't end up having security tools on your on-premises environment and having separate tools for the cloud. You can actually use the cloud tools to secure the whole environment. The on-premises tools, they're not really developed with cloud in mind. So some of the tools are not cloud away. They were not going to be able to secure the cloud environment. So you can actually use the tools and actually secure your environment. And also helps just to identify the gaps. What are the gaps that you have in the environment prior to migrating to the cloud, and try to close some of the gaps. Prioritize them. You might not close everything, but which ones are the key that I need to prioritize before migration? So this helps. And data classification, you talk about the criticality of data. It's difficult for us to secure your data if we don't understand how critical is your data. So if you classify your data and say this one is critical and sensitive, then we know that we must lock the data away. And then only few people. We don't just give everyone access to that environment. It means that that data, it's very sensitive. But if your data is not classified, it's very difficult. And then also in terms of access in the cloud, we revamp the identity. We even add the two-factor authentication, which you know as not the OTP. It's the OTP or the Microsoft authentication tool. When you log into your bank, right, you either use your bank application, you either use your biometrics. That is identity. If you're not using your biometrics, they send you a OTP number that you add to identify yourself, to further identify yourself, to say this is me. It's not someone that is taking chances. So it's exactly the same within the cloud. So we can use that OTP, we can use biometrics, just to make sure that the environment is further secure. And also the policies. What's nice with the cloud is that the policies are not on paper like on-prem. You actually go and enable the policies. You can actually identify the trusted data. You can make sure that everything that is actually implemented in the cloud is monitored, immediately as it gets onboarded. So you can do a lot of policies. It's just a matter of enabling them, and there's a lot of insight. If you want to see stuff, you want to see your risky users, and you give information, these are the risky users. They'll even show you which users are actually watching Netflix during work hours or at night, abusing company data and all of that. So we can see all that information. So there's a lot of insights. Sometimes it's just a matter of you don't even know who the right channels to take that data to, and some of the data can actually get people in trouble. So you just have to think and say, okay, which stuff to take and which one is raising red flags, which one I can give a person a warning and say, stop doing what you're doing, it's not right. Security within the cloud, it's all about the user mindset shift. It's the same. I always say it's the same. If you can't give a person your credentials, your login credentials for the bank, why would you save the company credentials on the website? When that thing pop up and say, do you want to save your username and your password there when you're using FNB or using your app site, you say, hey, no, people might steal your money. But it's so easy for people to save the company credentials, and the company can actually lose more. So it's a matter of sitting down, doing the change management, like people change management, and teaching the user. There are things that you can do, there are things that you cannot do. Just make them think secure, safe all the time, and to have that suspicion and to be cautious all the time. In that way, then we would have less hackers trying the environment. And also, I mentioned the classification of data. Identities are more important and data is more important. And also, role-based access means that I'm giving you access for you to be able to do your job. So I'm not giving you access to environment where you're not required. You know, I can't give you access to, for example, to SAP application support and you're not doing that role. It's useless for you. And if I give you that access, someone can actually steal your credentials and access, and then you'll be in trouble. So the governance and compliance is important for the likes of PwC when they come and audit, and then policy enforcement as well, because it gives you more insight. And securing of the devices, since everybody now is using mobile devices or your laptops to actually connect to the company data. So the companies now just need to make sure that they can secure those devices. They can secure the data. If the device doesn't belong to the company, they can just secure the data within the device, especially on the application that belongs to the company, like your email, like your OneDrive, like your Teams. So those applications, the company needs to make sure that they can secure. And also they can choose whether the stuff on the email, you can be able to copy it or download it into your device. If they decided, no, I don't want you to actually download anything from the device that belongs to the company, then you won't be able. You can view it, but you'll never be able to download it into your cell phone or your laptops. Then lastly, the learning path for cloud services. So there are a lot of jobs within the cloud environment, and then it's one of the sought after skills. I mean, I'm a cloud architect lead, right? So there are many companies now, because they are thinking of going to the cloud. They are looking for cloud architects. And then how many cloud architects are out there? They are very few. And remember, you're not just looking for someone also who just have, because there are people who have done the training, but then they don't have the skills. So it's difficult also to get the skills, but it's also important to do the training and then find a company that can help you, to get the skills within this environment. So one of the sought after skills right now is a cloud architect. And then the other one is cloud migration, because people want a person that can actually migrate, or they call them cloud engineers. And then the other one is machine learning and artificial intelligence. It's a sort of after database skills, especially on the pairs. Okay, there is a mistake. Actually, I meant infrastructure as a service. So on the pairs and infrastructure as a service, then a lot of database skills that are sought after. And then programming languages. I mentioned developers. Developers have become more important when it comes to the cloud environment, because especially when you're developing application from scratch, then it's make it easier for the companies. It's make it easier also to move faster to the market. Okay, there's a question. Okay, I don't see the question, but I saw it popping up. Can you read the question if there's one?
Yes, how do I start learning cloud on my own for free? So I think we'll answer this one, in the next session, So how do you, so we have a slide around this one where we'll show you colleagues how to do that. Thanks.
Okay, so the other one is like I mentioned, that the system or platform certification. So those are platform engineers or system engineers that are called cloud engineers. So those ones are in demand. And DevOps, guys, DevOps, it's very much in demand. We can cover it next time, because DevOps on its own is just a different topic. And then also big data and analytics, especially with all the analytics that comes within the cloud environment. Those are the main skills that are required in the cloud, right? So there are some of the training institute, but so some of them is Udemy. Of course, that one is not free. Azure is free to learn there, in AWS, but then the exams are not free. And then there's also Cloud Guru. So, but this will be covered more on the next slides that you provided. So from my side, I think that's it. Thank you so much, guys. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. And if you need any information that you want me to share with you, I can share.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yes, I think you touched on various elements on cloud, and I think maybe to some of us this may still be new, but yes, colleagues, I think now let's recap in terms of what she talked about, and let's ask some questions. I know there were a few words, on-prem, PaaS, SaaS, and all those things, but I think as she mentioned in the last slides here, I think there is a lot of demand in terms of people, people who are skilled on cloud. And of course, cloud is to do with other technologies that she talked about, DevOps, machine learning, and all that. But I'm quite excited to mention that for this online bootcamp with Motlokwe, we are going to have sessions around blockchain, machine learning. Then I think this is really a very good foundation for us, so to understand when we are going to talk to the guys from blockchain, cybersecurity, and all those related areas, we'll now be having very good foundation in terms of what cloud computing is. So there's question from Chilane, and then I mentioned that in our next session, we are going to talk about that. I'm not sure if there's any other specific question that one need to ask. While I'm doing this. Yeah, so now yes, yeah, sorry.
No, I'm saying if there are no questions, guys, I'm available on LinkedIn, and if you need anything, you can just chat anytime, and I'll be happy to share any information that you require in the future.
Thank you.
That's it from my side. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. I think if you still have time, you can just be with us here, because the friends may be asking some other questions. That
okay, no, I'm still here.
All right, great. Now I think this one, I just wanted to ask the question now to say, then from here, then what, right? And then I think Miss or Mr. Mtlala already checked there to say, then how do I start, right? So I just thought maybe we can just, paint the picture in terms of what's happening out there, in terms of those cloud providers, so that even when you're going to start cloud, because they are really more, today we're not vendor specific, but I understand when you want to go and learn, you will be biased to one or two providers out there. So she mentioned to do things about Azure, Microsoft, AWS is Amazon, Google Cloud, Oracle. There are quite lots of them. And she also mentioned about something to do with SAP HANA. So SAP also, there's a cloud around that, right? So I don't want to go and touch about this. I think she already mentioned about the emails to say what the type of cloud solutions that are out there. And then she already mentioned that the cloud is not something that's really out there. We have been using it. I think it's been there for so long. She talked about Yahoo. And even now we use the Gmail. I think almost all of us are having Gmail, right? And then that's type of cloud in a way, because it'd be more of that SaaS one, software as a service, because you are not interested in terms of where it's stored, who's doing what, the electricity and all those things. You just consume it as you need it, right? So also, she also mentioned about this 365, Teams, Outlook, all these collaboration solutions. They are mainly also cloud-based. We really care less who's doing what, whether they are patching them, when, and all that, as long as they are available, right? And then other ones like Dropbox. I think there are, I believe, thousands now of solutions which are out there that are for personal use. So it's just really for us to go and look at them. So I think, for example, with this Google, most of us, we just really know the email part, yeah? But if you go here, I believe you can still see my screen, right?
Yes, we can see the screen.
So I was saying, if you go here, then you will see quite lots of solutions that are there, which are cloud-based, that you can use, like Drive, Google Drive. I believe it's giving us 15 gig free. It's something that everyone can use. And then sometimes also there are those who add time that I think I really like this one, where you don't have your you don't have a license. You can just come and use Google Docs. because it's just purely, or it looks just like what do you call it? It's just like Word. So then you can start, doing all these things here. You can just use it as if like is a Word Microsoft Word. And that the beauty part is that you can able to share it here. You can do quite a lot of things, right? So this is just an example of the solutions that are out there that one can really use without you doing anything. Spreadsheet, slides here, they are just really quite a lot of things. The same way with the Microsoft 365. So these are the solutions that we can really use. I will say for home use. Let's just go here. Right? Obviously, these are the prices that are out there. And then if I log on, I think I have, yeah. I think I have. Okay, so I want to use the one that I have access to 365. There are quite a lot of things that colleagues you can use on a personal level, right? But mostly, I want us to talk about the cloud. I don't want to say the real cloud, right? Now, the stuff that you talked about to say, if you want to get certified, what do we do? The type of certification which are out there, how do you start, right? So I thought maybe we can take this next 15 minutes or so just to talk about that. Microsoft, 7 different cloud solutions there, 365, Dynamics, Azure, and AWS, I think is also one of the popular ones. And then, as you know, because these cloud providers, they have data centers across the globe, right? Microsoft and Azure, they're already having their own data centers in South Africa. So now the issue of, I think you talked about the compliance and regulations and all that. I think it will become much easier now for South African companies, or even ourselves, maybe as entrepreneurs or at the personal level, to able now to store our data in South Africa, because with the cloud, the data location or data residence has always been an issue. But now, because these two, they're having their data center in South Africa, it becomes much easier. So my aim then was that I just wanted to show how can you start, maybe learning about all these the cloud solutions, right? For example, with the AWS, just go into the AWS.Amazon, you'll see the different certifications which are there. Yeah. So it will be the foundation, and then associate professionals and many of them. So mostly, like with anything else, right? You must start from the beginning. So the one that gives you the foundation. So this is the one I think majority of us can go. And then you can see here, you don't necessarily have to go even to that, to talk IT or wherever for the training, right? You can get all the materials online. I think cloud computing is one. Cloud in general is really well documented on the net. You can Google, you can go to YouTube, just say cloud computing, you're going to have, I think, thousands of videos that talks about the cloud, even specific to these specific cloud providers or certification. You will able to get quite lots of them, right? So I think it's easier. You can just have to come here, and then you learn about them, and of course you can schedule the training here. But the most important thing is that you can, if you want to log in now, if you want to get into it, you can. I think I already have I already have, yes, I already have the access there. When you are new, let's say free. Let me just say free. Yeah, let's just do this. You can you can register. I think all of them really, they give us the free credits. When you start logging in, you will get the free, I think it's for what, 30 days or 12 months. They're going to give you specific services that you can use to able to practice. So it's just really for you to go for these sites and log in and start practicing. For example, this is my GUI for what do you call, for AWS, right? When you after registering, they'll need some, obviously your information and everything. You're going to get able to get this. The things that she's been talking about in terms of the infrastructure as a service, the pairs, the all of those things, all the services. I think she mentioned quite lots of the services around here, right? It's about the DevOps and whatever there's, I think lots of those solutions that the services that she's talked about, you can register and then you can able to find them here. Someone talked about Oracle, VMware. I believe that is more like a server. You wanted some machine. You can come to the cloud, and then like for example, you can just easily create, the server within few minutes. I think that's why I think there is that's the beauty part around cloud computing, because as we mentioned, it's out there. You don't really care who I believe you still remember that shared model that she mentioned, to say who's responsible for what. If you are going to cloud and then you want to use the infrastructure as a service, for example, you just want to create the server, right? You don't really care about who's powering these machines. Like for example, I just created these machines, I believe 2 days before. Or even if you want to create a new server, right? You can just come here and then you will select your specific operating system that you are looking for, right? Maybe just say you are taking Microsoft server. So you will just, without seeing the reg, without adding the disk, without physical disks on the rack or powering your data center and everything, you'll just come here. Within a few clicks, you will able to be having that server, right? So it's something that I really encourage your colleagues to come and try to practice these things so that you are more familiar with all of this, so that when someone going to talk about cloud next time, cloud and blockchain, cloud and machine learning, you're already familiar with all of this. So I'm just giving this illustration. Today is not really about explaining what all these things are, but it's just to say that with the cloud computing, you can just, as she mentioned, it makes life easier. If you have a machine like this, adding the storage on the machine, it's just easier, just like that, right? You just, everything is really simple. It's a very straightforward thing. You see, when I still talking like this, I can able just to create the server, the machine like this. And then you will see within a few minutes, it should be, it should be on. So this is not something, this is not specific to AWS. You can do the same thing with, this is just the GUI for Azure, Microsoft one. You can see I also am using the free trial. When you first register, they are going to give you the first some, like for example, let me show you here. They gave me 3,000. That's what they say, 3,700 credits for me to play around this, for me to able to log in, to create the server, to create the networks, and all those things. The same thing as you saw there with AWS. These are all the services. Blockchain, as I mentioned, all those things that she talked about, in Internet of Things, and then of course, these are for the infrastructure as a services, right? So the same thing here, you can just come and create a machine, virtual machine, right? You will just it's just a click. Unlike when you still have to ask someone in your company to to create or to give you space, or still waiting for in terms of a procurement. People that are still waiting for this to come. When you are in the cloud, you can just able to create your machine easier when but as I mentioned, it's not really about I'm not this session is not about it's not about it's not about explaining the whole cloud technically what are those things. But just for an example, I mentioned that AWS and Google, AWS and Microsoft, they're having their data center in South Africa. You can see here, you can able to choose to say, where do you want this data center, this VMware or this virtual machine to be residing or located, right? So you have a different regions here that you can choose from. So that's really the beauty part around this, because as she mentioned, also the issue of high availability, the fault tolerance, the cloud is just really there to cater for you for all of these things. If maybe you want the DR, disaster recovery, you can really just do it easier compared to when you are on site. You see, so let's just maybe, for example, here I choose this, and here is just to. But anyway, maybe I may not necessarily even go here. But the point here is just to say that with the cloud, you can have a free trial. You can still trying to play around it. Like when we're talking there about the Oracle, I just went to Oracle, and then I just registered, and then I've already created the machine there. So you will just go to Oracle, you give them your information, and then they'll send you the email. As you can see, they just sent this email 35 minutes back, right? You register there, they're going to give you this, and then boom, voila, you're having access to Oracle, where you can now go and just immediately create that Oracle VMware. You can just come here, incidents, and then I think who was that? I think the person who was asking about Oracle something. So I think maybe instead of downloading something and in your machine is not working, Ubuntu this, Ubuntu that, you can maybe just come, you can just log on Oracle, and then you are going to able to choose different images, right? You can just come here, you just come there, and then you will able to select whatever image you are looking for. Send OS, whatever, Microsoft. It will just be easier for you to to work on that. I think you talked about Oracle Linux or something like that. So you just come here and then play around it from here. So the point is just saying that I think we're having foundation now today of what cloud computing is, why do we need cloud computing, and then I think it's really up to us now to come and then play with this so that you can able to know how to use them, right? The same thing, it will happen with Google. Today we are not advertising anything of any sort, right? So with the same thing with Google, you can just come Google Cloud free, and then you're going to get started for free, right? You'll do the same thing. You just log in, give them your information, and then they're going to give you free space on cloud to play around it. And then when you are happy, or when you are financially stable, then you will just pay as you use. I think she mentioned that one of the reasons why they really like cloud computing is that it gives you the different pricing models, right? You can pay as you use. You can do something called the reserves. You can still get your dedicated storage on the cloud. So it's really quite good thing for one to really be familiar with this cloud cloud stuff. So if maybe we go to, where did I created that machine? I think I created that thing here. Yeah. So you can then go and then launch that. You can just go and connect to this machine just like that. You don't really have to struggle a lot in terms of what do you need to do there. So you will see, I just created this, and you can then just immediately access this what do you call this machine. Is that the one? Yeah. So let me, we can copy the passwords here, and then you are in. This is the server. Something that maybe people takes some months and whatnot. With the cloud, you just come in and then you log in, and then boom, voila, you get your server. Your server is starting, and then you're able to upload. Someone sent me an email about is having a problem with the website or something. You can just come and load your machine like this within a few minutes. I've been talking maybe for 15 minutes, and then I'm just able to get the server running now on the cloud. So this is the server. Then you can come and do whatever thing you want to do here, right? So someone talked about, you can do whatever thing. I mean, I'm not going to explain anything of any sort, but the point is just that this is a normal server that, I mean, some of us will do. Personally, even you may not necessarily even able to have your own server wherever you work, right? But with the cloud here, it's going to give you that flexibility to if you're a developer, whoever you are, you can able to come here and do whatever thing you are looking for. So that's really what I just wanted to mention. She talked about Udemy. I'm also using Udemy. Udemy, I think, is one of those things. Is also quite good platform where you can come and learn about anything. Actually, it's anything. But of course, in our case here, you can you'll find very good sites where they explain better this cloud concept. Yeah. So I'm not sure if there's any questions regarding all these things that I've just talked about. Right. So this is just a normal server. You will get into it, and then just do whatever. Normally people, they will come here and then like the web server, and then you do it and just like that you install. So I think it's really pretty good thing for one to start practicing this. As she mentioned, there is a lot of demand out there for people with the cloud skill, right? And then, of course, these are just lots of those certifications. This is, I think, for Azure, Microsoft. These are quite, these are those certifications which one can pursue with regard to Azure. And then this is not specific to them. Microsoft, Alibaba, I think you saw on the spreadsheet, on here, we talked about, there was something about Alibaba and all these things here. Everything is out there. Just able to have an internet, and you can really, manage to practice this, and who knows, before you know it, you are a cloud guru. Yeah. Any comment, any question from you, colleagues, friends? Are we?
Yes. Comments.
No questions, Miss. Yeah, we're good.
Great. Yeah. So I think, yeah. Frida?
No comment. I was just saying, yeah, it's quite enlightening. I have tried Udemy as well. It's really, yeah, helpful.
Yeah.
It really assists with a lot of things that you guys are sharing. Because so far I've checked their Excel from basics to advanced, and I've done 7% of their work now. It's really good.
Great stuff. Nomfundo?
Yeah.
I'm good on my side. Thank you, guys.
Okay, great stuff. So therefore, yeah, I think this is what we wanted to share today. And if there's no questions, I'll think that then we will meet on the next 2 weeks, where we'll be talking to also the experts from the business intelligence. So this is also going to tie up to the previous phase 1 of our session where we were doing data analysis. So I remember there was quite lots of interest. People wanted to know about, I think even, I don't know whether it might even be here, the Power BI. People were talking about Power BI and all of those things. And I think we are going to have an opportunity to, to be dealing with those. So we are going to invite the people from industry in the next 2 weeks. I think in the next 2 weeks it will be on the 18th. We will meet again on the 18th. We are recording this session. We'll be sharing this session on YouTube. Yeah. So we are just 2 minutes to go to 5:30. And then if there is nothing from you colleagues, I'll thank you. Oh, someone still want to come to join. So without any comment, I would like to thank Simpio for dedicating a Sunday to come and join us and share with us this great space in technology, which is currently one of the hot topics out there. As you heard, there are few people who really understand or work on cloud. Having someone who is working in one of these big institutions just to come for no fee, for free to come and share with us is really heartwarming for such. And then of course to you friends, to dedicate this time on Sunday like this. People now, they coming from churches, I'll think they want to relax, but you colleagues manage to make this time to meet with us. Mr. Augustine at Tanzania, is there anything that you want to add?
Not really. Thank you, Motlokwe, for this wonderful time. I think I've got some much experience on the cloud computing. I'm the one of the use of this kind of the tools, and I really enjoy the session. And I hope join you next time on different causes. But thank you for arrange this kind of bootcamp where people will meet and share some knowledge. So thank you so much. Nothing from my side. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I believe is warm that side also. Thank you very much. So Dar es Salaam, yeah. So friends, thank you very much. Simpio, the last word from your side.
No, thank you as well for having me. It was a pleasure. I think I enjoyed it. It took me back. Lately I've just been talking about cloud security, but it took me back. I think that I've taken for granted the fact that we've been operating in the cloud for some time, and majority of the companies are still going or thinking of going to the cloud. Yeah. But at least because we do have lesson learned, it'll be easier for us. It's easier to share and make sure that they don't do some of the mistakes that we've done, and they also learn from us.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, anytime I'm available.
No, thank you very much. And then I must mention that colleagues, Simpio, she has been in various conferences as a speaker from CISO and IT Web and all these other big conferences. And then it's really our pleasure to have her here. It really means a lot to us. So to you friends, any comments from your side? And if none, let me just find out. Any comments, last word from your side? Right, if none, right, thank you very much. Then we will meet each other on the 18th of this month when we are going to talk about business intelligence. Thank you very much. Keep well, and then Corona is still out there. We must social distance, wear the mask, and indeed wash our hands regular. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Bye.
Thank